Hi, in this video, we are going to talk about char arrays, a quick review on char array. So let's go through this and then I will show you code using char arrays. So char array is essentially character array, an array of characters for strings. So there are two ways to read a char arrays. First of all, let's see how to declare a char array. Char name 101 says declare a variable called name char array 101 characters. Okay, so you have to go back and review the arrays to just figure out what we're doing with arrays, but this is character array. So name is the name of the variable. Char is the data type and 101 characters. Okay, and or we could use a max char as a constant with 101 as a value and use that. Okay, so that's a char array. That's how you declare char arrays. Okay, now how do you actually use it? It reads text into a char array. You can use cin.get if you want. That's one of the syntax. It includes white space and other characters. Okay, so you could use, remember, you could use the extraction operator, which we have used before. You could do cin name without cin.get. This will read a char array, but this will not read spaces. Okay, so if you have a string with two words with a space, this will not read it. So we must use cin.get, or there's another syntax that we'll take a look at, cin.get line. Okay, cin.get is a syntax that will help us read a char array. It reads until the user enters a new line, which is the enter key. Okay, so let's see. Here is code that we use. We don't use cin.get, but we use cin.get line. Okay, so here's the other syntax. I will copy that slide. I'll paste it. And the next syntax that we want to look at is cin.get line. Cin.get line is a little better than cin.get. It reads text into a char array. It includes white space and other characters. And let's rephrase this. And it ignores the new line character that comes after the user hits enter, or when the user hits enter, okay, after typing in the string. So it does not, it removes /n, let me put it that way. It removes the /n, which is the new line character, from the buffer, okay? And we don't use cin.ignore. So cin.get line is a much better syntax for us to use to read a char array. So let's see how to use cin.get line. Okay, so here's, you can try this code. Const int max char equals 101. This is a constant that we declare. Char name, you have a new variable called name with max char, 101 characters. Subject is another char variable with 101 characters as well. You tell the user, please enter name, cin.get line, the name of the variable followed by the number of characters. Will read that whatever the user enters with spaces and everything. Then you tell them, please enter subject. And the same way, cin.get line, subject, max char. Then you see out name and subject. So you can just try this. You must try this code in order to figure out how to work with a single char array. This is just a single name, single subject, right? Okay. Now, with char arrays, or C strings as they are called, we use functions for everything. Here are some examples of functions. For example, if you type in string length of name, it's going to give you the number of characters in that variable. Okay, so if you did the previous code, if you did the code for this, then you went on and just said cout string length of name, it will give you the number of characters in there. String length of subject will tell you the string length or the number of characters in subject. Then you can compare, if string compare of name, subject, the number of characters greater than 0, or if it's string compare, it's actually like that, greater than 0, then name is greater than subject. How does this work? The greater than says alphabetically, if the letter has a greater ASCII value than the next string. So if name were banana and subject was apple, B is 66 and A is 65, so then name would be greater than subject. Okay, that is how it works. If name were apple and subject were banana, then name is less than subject, or subject is greater than name. So think about that. Okay, that's how this works. This checks to see if name is greater than subject. That's what this is. Name comma subject greater than 0 says name is greater than subject. If you change this to less than, then you're saying if name comma subject where name is less than subject. So you write your condition based on what you are trying to check. Are you trying to check if this string is greater than this string or if this string is less than the string? Depending on, are you trying to sort something ascending or descending? Things to think about, okay? Then we talk about two-dimensional arrays. Two-dimensional arrays are important in the sense that we are going to see how to store an array of things, array of arrays, right? This is an array of an array. So it's not single dimensional, it's two-dimensional. So it looks like a table. So these are rows going from top to bottom. We have 10 rows of 5 columns. That's what that is, right? These are rows going down, columns going across. So that's what you need to know. And each one has a specific subscript that goes with it, okay? Now, how do you access two-dimensional arrays? Here is, again, a two-dimensional array. This is how you declare it. Here's a board, if you had a board game or something, right? 4 by 3. An integer array of 4 by 3 elements. 4 rows, 3 columns. Okay? So we won't be working much with two-dimensional integer arrays, but we will be working with two-dimensional character arrays. Sorry, this background does not look very super. Okay, there we go, much better. Two-dimensional array declaration. Const int, we have two constants. We declare an array, two-dimensional array of 2 by 4, right? It looks like this. And in order to traverse a two-dimensional array, we're just going to use a nested for loop. Okay, so just look into this. We won't spend much time on this because I'm more interested in doing two-dimensional char arrays. So just go through this and we'll come back and review this later. So here is two-dimensional char arrays. Char names, again, rows by columns. What this says is I'm going to have 4 names. Each one is going to have 10 characters, the maximum of 10 characters. That is the columns going across. The rows is the names going down. So John, Messiah, Ariel, Marcella. So these are the names that go across, right? So this char array called names will store 4 names for me with 10 characters each. That's what that says. Okay, and these are the names. So that's kind of a layout. That's how it looks. Now, how do we actually use this? So once you have declared your char array like this, you declare it, then how do we read into it? Unlike an integer where you have two for loops, where you have to have a nested for loop, a char array is a little different. You go from row 0 to 4, right? 0, row equals 0, row less than 4. You can just read a whole name. You don't have to read it one character at a time. If you say C in name square bracket row, you're reading the whole row of name. So this is reading the first row, 0. Then you go, row gets incremented to the next one. Then you read the next row. Then row gets incremented to 2. Then you read the next row. Then row gets incremented to 3. You read the last row. Row gets incremented to 4. 4 less than 4 is false. We come out of there. The same concept for outputting. So unlike integer arrays, char arrays are a little different in the sense that to store a list of char arrays or a list of names, we actually have to have a two-dimensional array that looks like this. An array of 4 names with 10 characters each. Okay? Okay. So this array, for example, stores 5 names with 31 characters each. Okay? So whenever we store something like that, here, look at this picture. You see the last character in every array is a null character. That's called a null character, and that gets put in automatically. You don't have to put it in. All you do is enter the name, whatever your name is. You know, you can put in Iyer, David, Nancy, whatever you put in. It automatically appends the null character at the very end. So, which is why we have 31 characters, because we need the one for the null character, 30 characters for the user to enter something. Okay, so we are going to use scene.getLine to read these things. So scene.getLine names of I comma 31. So here what we did was we used the extraction operator, names of row. If you use the extraction operator, remember we cannot read anything with spaces. So we use scene.getLine. Scene.getLine is a function that takes 2 parameters. This is the actual variable And because it is an array of names, each name has a subscript. Names of 0 is the first name, names of 1 is the second name, and so on and so forth. And each one is going to have 31 characters. Now let's see how to use this in a program. So here is my server, and I have a program in here called char arrays.cpp, and we're going to take a look at that. Remember, you have your nano that you can use. Now I have a video on how to edit code and things like that, so you should watch that before you get to this. So vi is what I use. Here is the actual code file. All this is going to do is, it's a very simple example. All it does is it's going to demo char arrays, how to read, how to print, how to search in a list of names, not one name, okay? A list of names, just like you saw here, a list of names, okay? So we have a const int maxcar. I have two header files, iostream and cstring. Let's start from there. Const int maxcar 101. I have three functions. We'll talk about them in a minute. Remember, this is also going to show you how to pass char arrays to functions, okay? So char names 10 names of 101 characters. That's what this line says here, okay? 10 names. Each one is going to have maxcar, which is 101 characters, as you see up here on the top. Okay, I have a variable called count. Count will essentially tell me how many names I'm going to read from the user. Okay, read names is a function. Notice here I have read names is a function that takes this char array. Notice how I pass the char array to the function. First square bracket does not have any number. Second square bracket must have that number, maxcar. Okay, the function returns an int. Remember how we wrote functions? The int is what is going to return. Read names is the name of the function, the variable, the parameter that it takes. What are we doing in the function? I'm declaring count equals 0. It is essentially going to read names from the user. I ask the user, how many names would you like to enter? They say something. I put it in count. Then I ignore. The scene.ignore says when they type in count and hit enter, there's a new line that sits in the buffer. You got to ignore that. So that's what that does. For int I equals 0, you go through a for loop. So if they say 5 names, the for loop is going to execute 5 times. Enter a name. They input a name, and this is how we read a name into a char array. Name square bracket I. So read the first name, then go back to the for loop. Increment I. Read the next name, and so on and so forth until they've entered all the names that they want to enter. So if they said 5, then it's going to go through the for loop 5 times. Then when I'm done, I return count. That comes back here to this line, number 20, that says, okay, whatever they return is going to go into this variable count. Then I turn around and send that names array and count. Remember, names, the array is sent by reference. That means when it comes back, it's already filled. Remember reference parameters from when we did last quarter? Very important. Count comes back, goes into the variable count. Then we turn around and send the array and count to print names. Print names is a void function. Notice, again, print name takes 2 parameters, not 1, which is the char array and count. And we go through a for loop and we simply print it. We just use cout and print it. Then I'm also going to show you a search function. Search names takes, again, we send the names array and the count. Count always has to go with it because it knows how many names I have in the list. Then we go down to search names function, and it receives the 2 parameters. Search comes here, and I declare a local variable called search string, same way, a char array. I tell the user enter a name to search for, and I read it using getLine again. It's the same syntax. We're going to keep using the same syntax over and over, right? So we read the name that they enter. Then we go through my list, and we are searching for the name that they enter. So I equals 0, I less than count, because count is coming in as a parameter. Notice, if string, we are not using string compare. String compare will do an exact compare, which means if the name is Mike, you have to type in M-I-K-E. If I type in M-I-K, it won't find anything. I would like to do a partial search, which is what the string does. It looks at the first string, which is names of I, then it looks at the search string. So we compare the string in the list, the name in the array, names of I, to the name that the user enters to search for. If it is not equal to null, that means if the comparison returns a value that is not equal to null, that means it found a name and I'm going to print it. Otherwise, I don't do anything. I don't say anything at all. So if I don't find a name, I don't output a message. Okay. So then I call this function again, go back to main. After I print the names, I call the search names function. It's going to tell the user, hey, give me a name. I will see if it's there in the list. And so we are working with a list of names, a list of something. That's what we're going to be doing all through this quarter. We're going to be working with a list of something, and we're going to be doing different things with that. So let me show you how this code compiles and works, and that is what I want to do for today, for this video. So if I run this code, it says, how many names would you like to enter? So let me say 4 names. Okay, so you can say John Doe, GD Iyer, Nancy Drew, Mike Henry. Okay, there we go. So I got 4 names, and it prints the 4 names, and it says enter a name to search for. So if I enter Drew, it's going to say I found it at position 2, and that's all I told it to do. So think about it, and once you're done with this, we'll move to the next one.